Retro.
Purchase your tracks
today. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition with Grizzly on the Hunt. Good evening. Welcome one, welcome all. Make sure to subscribe, follow us, and like us, ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world. We are live tonight. Yes. So I don't know if our guest wants to do it, but I'm going to throw it out there. You know, if you want to come on live, we have the opportunity. There's the email. Send me a message in the comment section. Hello there from La La Land. Welcome. Welcome to the show. I will send you my Facebook account. And this way you can PM me personally and see if I send you a link. I'm telling you, man, I love psychics. I do.
Purchase your tracks
Purchase your tracks today. So the person we have tonight, y'all been asking for, we finally got hooked up, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Mr. John Russell himself, the psychic, paranormal researcher, investigator, UFO, and so much more. I think he's backstage. Mr. Russell, hello there. How you doing?
Grizzly, it's so good to finally be here, man. I'm really stoked.
Isn't that
for
the
this.
truth?
I'm excited,
Right.
brother.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'm not the right one again. LOL. This is Brenda. Hello, Brenda. She's one of my regulars.
Hello, Brenda.
Follower. She's real sweet. She's ex-law enforcement as well.
Oh, cool.
Welcome. So, yeah. So, for the people that don't know you, kind sir, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a professional psychic for over 50 years. I have read for clients in over 40 countries, which just blows my mind. I've been doing paranormal investigations since around the age of 11. I started reading professionally when I was 18. I'm
Wow.
also a published author. I've got 2 books in print right now that are available anywhere books are sold online, and working on a 3rd, which I'm going to have out here shortly, and got more in the pipeline after that. So that's the short and sweet of me.
Man, that is awesome. So I went on a mission like 90 days or so ago, maybe a little more. And, you know, I'm really into the paranormal.
Yeah.
And I really got into, it came back on me. I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I got gremlins all day today. It's like all my equipment's been malfunctioning. But when I went on this spiritual journey, I wanted to learn more about psychic mediums or anybody that has abilities.
Right.
And what I wanted to learn is how do they get their abilities, right?
Yeah.
And how do they endure that as they grew up and their hardships and troubleships and,
Right.
you know, the depression and all that other stuff. Because people don't realize what people go through in the beginning because they think they're normal and they're like, Grizzly, you don't see this? No, I don't see that. How come? I mean, they're talking to me, and I'm like, who's talking to you?
Yep.
So, and you know, back then, they would actually put you in an asylum. That's why they were called asylums, the non-hospitals.
Exactly.
Asylums is a bad voodoo, juju word, I call it.
Exactly.
That's why
right.
a lot of them got shut down in the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
Especially how people were treated.
Mhm.
My mother actually worked at Waverly Hills in Louisville,
wow.
Kentucky.
The famous
I lived
one,
down the street. Yeah, I lived right down the street from there when I was growing up.
Incredible.
And
Incredible.
I remember walking in there when it was a nursing home,
Mm-hmm.
and getting bubble gum out of the machine, and the ceilings were so high. It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, make a long story short, at my old house, this is 20 something years ago. This is when the ghost shows start really coming popular, and
Right.
somebody visited, and I was like, "Oh, I got to record this. My mom's gonna love it," because she used to
Mm-hmm.
work there, and I mean, she worked there for years.
Wow.
And so when she came over to my house, I'm like, "Hey, Mom, I got something to show you on TV." And I was like, "You got to come to the bedroom and watch it," because back then we had DVRs, which you couldn't use only but per room, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I turned it on, and she's like, "Really, a ghost show?" I'm like, "No, check this out." And when it starts showing Waverly, she's like, "Really?" And then she saw the condition of the building, the windows busted out, the graffiti, the haunted house, all this other stuff.
Right.
And she just got really upset. And what they were asking for was people to come forward. "Hey, if you work here, please step forward. We want to talk to you and get some history about this place." She never would. Still to this day, she won't.
Yep.
But she would tell you as a child, she lived down the street too.
Mm-hmm.
Her and her friends used to play in the tunnels, or the body chute tunnels, where they would escort the bodies or transport the bodies down out of sight and view everybody. So that was real interesting. So what you said you learned you had abilities at what age?
Around 5.5.
So how that happened? I mean, what made you just like, hello?
Yeah. Well, Chris, the way it happened, I was, like I said, about 5.5, and I was in my bed, sound asleep. And my parents had left, I slept with my bedroom door open, and my parents had left a nightlight on in the bathroom down the hallway so I could get up and go to the bathroom and see at night. And so from being sound asleep, instantly, I was wide awake with no drowsiness, no grogginess. And I was just like, what is this? Because even at the age 5.5, I was like, this is not normal. This is pretty weird. And I thought, well, maybe some sound outside woke me up or something. So I laid there real still and quiet and listened, didn't hear anything. And I was like, why is this happening? Why am I suddenly wide awake? So I raised up on my elbows and I'm looking around my bedroom because I can see in the night lights glow, just barely see into the bedroom a little bit. And I'm looking around. I'm like, what is going on? And I look out my open bedroom door, and down the hallway, in one of the doorways in the hallway, which led into the dining room, there was this elderly black gentleman peering around the doorway into my bedroom. And I screamed bloody murder because my family was white. We didn't have anyone black living with us. I don't think we even had any black friends. So my assumption as a 5-year-old child is somebody has broken into the house. And when I screamed, he walked around. Yeah, he walked around the doorway, walked around the door, through the door frame, into the hall, and started walking toward my bed with his eyes locked on mine.
No.
Yes, with his eyes locked on mine. And I knew he was elderly because he had close cropped white hair and he had a white mustache. And he was every single bit as solid as you or I. He wasn't transparent, wasn't translucent. He was absolutely solid. He had on a red flannel long sleeve shirt, khaki pants, tan pants, and a black belt, black shoes. And as he walked closer to me, I screamed bloody murder again. And then my parents started to come running, and he began to disappear. He got translucent, and then he got transparent, and then he vanished. And then by the time my parents got there, I was crying and screaming bloody murder and everything else. I said, there's somebody in the house. And my mom was trying to console me, and she was like, you saw something on TV, you had a nightmare. And I was like, no, someone is in this house, go look. And so she was holding me and trying to console me. My dad went through the house, actually opened all the closets, looked under all the beds, checked all the doors and windows. Of course, everything was secure. And intuitively, somehow, I was like, I've seen my first ghost. And they're trying to get me back to sleep. And I'm like, is this guy going to come back? Is he going to want to talk to me? Is he going to ask me to do something weird or scary? Why did he come in the first place? Why me? How can you be solid in a physical body and then just vanish? So all these things are going through my mind, and I finally get back to sleep. And for the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, I think I'm looking over my shoulder all the time, Chris, because I'm like, where's this guy? Where's he going to come back? And what's going to happen here? And I could not describe it at the age of 5. I couldn't put it into words, but intuitively, somehow I recognized this guy came for some important reason, and I shouldn't be scared of that. And then I began to have these physical paranormal manifestations that begin to occur. And these occurred on the physical realm. I mean, my parents witnessed them, other people witnessed them. And it was like, I put 2 and 2 together, and it was like this guy came to open up the portal to these experiences. And again, intuitively, it was like, okay, these things are going to be important for me down the road, and they're going to be important to other people down the road. I didn't know how, but I knew that they would. And so as these experiences continued, and I got close to the age of 6, I was out in the backyard playing with a toy one day, goofing around, and this car pulled in the driveway, and I did not recognize the people. And so I ran in the house. I got my mom and dad, and I said, "Hey, there's somebody in the driveway. I don't know who these people are." I said, "It's okay. We'll come check it out. We'll come look." So they came out, and they were like, "Oh, these are friends of ours." And I had never met them. I didn't know these people. So they got out of their car, walked up on the sidewalk, and they were standing there talking with my parents. And I went back to goofing around with my toy. And then I walked over to where they were at, and I stood there and I looked up at them, and I just interrupted the conversation. And I said, "You guys have just been on vacation, and you drove that car that's sitting in our driveway, and you have 2 kids. They're not with you today, but you've got 2 kids, and you took them with you on vacation in that car. And you went to this hotel, and it looked like this out front, had this many stories. There were these trees out front that looked like this, and they were regularly spaced. And then in the back was the pool area, and it was painted this color." Well, the guy, or her husband, this lady's husband, was kind of looking at my parents and looking at her like, "What's going on?" And this lady, honest to God, Chris, her jaw was agape, her eyes were bugged out. She looked at me like I had cobras growing out of my ears. And she looked at my parents and said, "How the hell could he possibly know this?" And my mother was taken aback. My parents didn't know how to respond to what I was saying. And they said, "Well, kids and their imagination." She goes, No, no, no. Kids and their imagination does not cut it. How the hell could he possibly know this? And my mother was kind of like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And she goes, "That's what we came to tell you today. We just went on vacation. We drove that car. We took our 2 kids. We stayed in this hotel that looked exactly like John described. How the hell could he possibly know this?" And my parents were like, "John, go play." And I was like, "Okay, nice to meet you folks." And also off I went. And it scared them so bad they never came back to visit my parents again. And so that's
Wow.
when I discovered, as an outgrowth of this portal to the paranormal opening up, it also activated this psychic gift. And I learned that I could tell where people had been, what they were thinking, what they had been doing. And then it progressed to the point that I discovered that I could accurately forecast people's futures and tell them what was going to happen, how to react to it, so on and so forth. And so that was the way I began to grow up. And then now, fast forwarding ahead to my current age, I've had way, way, way over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations. A lot of these have been witnessed by other people. We've recorded them, we've videotaped them, we've got them on audio, we've photographed them. So these are real physical occurrences that actually occur on the physical realm. And one of the interesting side effects of this has been that I have never been frightened of anything ever again that's ever occurred after that one instance. And I attribute that to being 5 years old and thinking somebody had broken the house. But after that, I have never been frightened again. It's the only way I've known to grow up. It's the only way I've lived. It's comfortable for me. It's happy for me. I've been able to help thousands and thousands of people worldwide with my gift. And it's just, to me, it's a wonderful thing. It's a good thing.
I tell you what, I'm like actually speechless because I, it's just
wow.
amazing.
It is
Uh,
amazing. It's
and
really amazing.
and I tell you how I feel right now. It's not going to work.
I feel good.
That's right. But you know what's amazing though is that a lot of people either have these abilities, either they're born with them.
Right.
Scarborough is like interesting talk on open portals. He's like, wow. And it usually takes a lot to wow Scarborough, right?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it really does. But what's interesting though is that either you are born with them, they're passed down from generation, from parents,
Right.
or they skip the generation, or people have NDEs with near-death experiences.
Right.
So
Or
out of
by
those,
accident. Sometimes people have accidents or illnesses and then will develop
right,
psychic powers. I read about somebody got struck by lightning and they developed psychic powers. So
right,
yeah.
yeah. So when I got hurt, you know, the cancer I had, unfortunately, the doctor told me it was small cell carcinoma and it'll come back in my lungs.
Mhm.
And I have to do an MRI every 9 months, checks rays every 90 days.
Right.
And when they first did the MRI, they were like, oh, we found lesions on your lungs. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? They're like, well, let's just monitor it and make sure they don't grow. And they said it seemed like you were sick when you were young. And I'm like, really?
Mhm.
And so that's interesting. So
Yeah.
I brought that up to my mother, and she's like, yeah, you had pneumonia when you was a child, and you were very, very ill.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow. So now in your situation, how did you get your abilities?
Well, the old black gentleman, the ghost, whoever he was, guardian angel, spirit guide, he opened up that portal and kind of activated those abilities, and it all grew out of that. And then as I progressed and these things, I began to have just almost constant paranormal physical manifestations. And I write about these in my books. And the thing that drove me, I had this internal compass, and I don't know if it was a process of that awakening or if that was inherent within me, but I've always loved the truth. And I've always wanted to find out the truth, and I've always been willing to go wherever the truth led me. And if I had to discard pet peeves or things or whatever to find out the truth, I was willing to do that. And even at a very early age, and I guess because this awareness, this gift, and this insight activated so early, I would see people that preached one thing and did another, looking at adults.
Oh, yes.
And I would see all this duplicity in the church, and I would see all this duplicity in the psychic, paranormal, spiritual realm. And I would see all these people cheating and lying and stealing, proclaiming one thing, doing another. I said, no, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And so I began to examine that. I began to look at that. And then I also became aware that there were people that preached things or taught things that didn't work. It just
Yeah,
did not work,
absolutely.
and it was like, okay, if this doesn't work, let's get rid of it and let's find something that does. So that set me on my course of study. And I had always been, my mother raised me to read, and she read to me. And I was a very good reader, even at a very early age, with good comprehension. And by the time I was 11, I was reading books on psychology, parapsychology, religion, spirituality, everything I
Wow.
could get my hands on. Yeah. I was into Jung. I was into Freud at the age of 11, all these types of things. And I read everything I could and studied everything I could. And I wanted to absorb it, and I wanted to filter everything through that and say, okay, what's real, what isn't, what works, what doesn't. How can I take this gift and educate this gift and make it better and help people better and progress more and understand more. And all these years later, I'm now 69 this month, and I'm still doing the same thing.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how can I be more accurate? How can I be better? How can I serve my clients better? How can I understand the spiritual realm better? And so to this day, it's still this driving thing, this compass, if you will, is get to the truth. Let's slough off the BS. Let's find out what works, what doesn't. And there's so many phony psychics out there. There's so many phony mediums. There's so many phony preachers. There's so many people that, and ufology and all these other things that are just either they're out for the money, they're deluded, they're misguided, or whatever. And it's like, to this day, I'm still cutting through that. And I'm like, okay, let's get down to the real meat of what works and what doesn't. And people say, well, how can you evaluate that? What's your criteria for judging that? And it's like, well, very simple. With me, I've got photographic evidence. I've got video evidence. I've got audio evidence. I've got eyewitnesses over the years, for all the years that I've been doing this, that have experienced these exact same things that I have. I have people that I've been able to give healing energies to. You go on my website, you'll read over 80 client testimonials that talk about the accuracy and the veracity of my readings, the accuracy of my predictions, and so on and so forth. I've been able to provide physical healing to people. So, and I've got photographs of the spirit realm. I've got ghost photographs, spirit photographs. And so I've got this concrete evidence that, yes, this is there. And so when I go to challenge these people, they say, well, what makes your opinion or judgment or whatever more valuable than this? It's like, I've got the evidence, and these other people are talking a game that they don't have. And when you press it, there's nothing there. And so that's a big issue for me, is to expose the phonies, to help the misguided, and to try and make a difference in people's lives for the better.
Yeah, I always hear, for $500, I'll get rid of that curse.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
yep.
Really? And people pay it. I've seen people pay up to $2,500.
I've been telling people I'm going to write a broadside here soon, and I really am. I'm going to write this extended thing about how to avoid phony psychics, phony preachers, so on and so forth, and avoid being taken from that. Because over the years, I have had a lot of people come to me, and even some of my clients that got diverted and went by the wayside, and they have gone to these phony psychics and these phony mediums and so on and so forth, and they have lost $50,000, $100,000, $120,000. And people say, okay, well, if you're that stupid, if you're that gullible, you deserve it. Well, number one, no, you don't, because let me tell you something. These people are Bobby Fischer, and you're the kid just starting out playing chess. So number one, you don't stand a chance. Confidence artists are called that because they know how to gain your confidence. They can look at you, they can look at me, they can look at anybody else, and they can size you up and go, okay, here's this guy's weaknesses, here's this guy's strengths, here's his hot buttons, here's where I need to go to reel this guy in. So it's not a matter of, being stupid or being gullible or naive or whatever. Some of these people that have been taken over the years that I've had to rescue out of these situations have been people that had multiple degrees, multiple businesses, so on and so on and so forth. So highly educated, highly experienced. But, we all have that moment of weakness, just like we all have our price. And these people know how to find that moment of weakness and how to exploit it. And so this is one of the things that's disturbed me over the years, is to see all these people taken for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, I'm going to write this thing and post it on multiple forums. Here's how you avoid getting taken in this scam. I've done this with my clients over the years, but it's become such a thing. I've got to get this out in a broader message and a broader venue.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. So, my daughters growing up, they would always come home with their friends or boyfriends, then be like, you see that guy sitting on the edge of the couch? That's my dad. If he asks you a question, you better not lie, because he knows the truth.
There you go.
And everybody said, I always had this gift of people I know that they will actually confess to me of their dirty deeds.
Yes.
And more.
Yes.
And also, I can tell if somebody's telling me the truth or not very quickly. And it's because of all the training I had with all the government classes and mandated
your
classes.
intuitive ability. Those classes activated and enriched that intuitive ability. And you put all that together, and you got a good BS detector.
Yeah, and everybody's like, man, that's such a blessing. And it's like, no, it's really not, because to me it's a curse, because it costs a marriage. It costs friendships.
Yes.
My bosses, before I went to the civilian side and went up to the corporate ladder, I would be like, stop. And they were like, damn it, Grizzly, I hate it when you do that. I was like, well, if I ask you a question and you don't want to tell me the truth, just say, I don't want to talk about it.
There you go.
Now's not a right time. Okay. That's all you got to do. But, it's people like that. And, I'm not saying I'm a psychic or intuitive by any means, but I do have a couple things. Hello, Norma. Welcome to the show.
Norma agreed with you 100%.
Like the church, you want to go to heaven, you better be a good Catholic and hand over 10%. I say bye. Well,
I agree.
So here's the deal about church. Okay. So everybody always wants me to give them prayers to bless and cleanse the home and whatever they need for their attachments and all that. Because I did a 2-hour lecture on this a couple of months ago.
Right.
And for the beginners in ghost investigations or hunters, however you want to call them, because they would call me up like, man, I got bad headaches. My wife and I are fighting. My girlfriend and I we're scratching at each other. It's horrible. I can't sleep. And I'm like, what'd you do? They're like, nothing. I'm like, no, something you have done has changed the course in your actions. So the last time we talked, what have you done? Well, we watched something on TV and we thought we could do it and we went and tried it. And I was like, did you try to provoke them? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, did you use a Ouija board? And they're like, I said, so yes, you did. That's all you have to say, just yes or no. And they're like, I hate when I talk to you. And I was like, well, just answer the questions, And I tell them I can give you everything you need. But 2 things have to happen. Number 1, you got to be pure at heart, right? And you got to have faith.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is the prayers and blessings I have will work. And if you don't have those 2, it will make things worse. I always tell people, reach out to people like Mr. Russell. Reach out to people that are actual true clergymen. Now, a lot of people is like, well, my preacher is the best. My preacher does this. And my pastor does that. Well, you know what? What happens is, ladies and gentlemen, they go through schooling, they get taught a certain way, or they pay for a fee to get ordained or take a couple classes, whatever. Okay, that's fine. It is what it is. But they take their interpretations and they preach that because that's the way they were taught. And sometimes it's the wrong word. So
dogma, tradition, and ritual.
Yeah, there we go. Absolutely. So we are part-time psychics, Scarborough says. Yeah. And Norma is giving a handshake, or no, clapping hands to Brenda, or waving to Brenda. Oh, okay. I don't have my new glasses, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I went from 40 years old. I'm 48 now. Or yeah, I had to stop and think. That's I'm 48 now. I'm getting ready to turn 49 in June. And when I turned 40, I went straight into bifocals. Never wore glasses in my life. And I went and got my eyes checked, and they were like, I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we're going to have to change your prescription. And I'm like, for what? They're like, well, congratulations. You just got promoted. And I was like,
yeah, there you go.
I hate when somebody says I got promoted, because that usually means bad things on my side.
Oh, God.
Like,
I wish I was 48 again, Chris.
They're like, you got promoted to trifocals. And I'm like, I'm like, oh, my God. And when I went to bifocals, and I know this is off the subject, ladies and gentlemen, but I would fall because the ground was higher than what it looked like. And I have to use this as an example, okay?
Been there, done that.
I'm not promoting this brand, so I'm going to try to cover it. So I was at the store and I had my new glasses and I was doing this number and I was like, man, I can't believe I can read this small print. Well, to the right of what I'm holding, there was a lady standing there. And I heard this guy like, and I was like, huh? He's like, I said, do you like what you see? And I was like, well, hell yeah, I do. And oh my Lord, I thought the whole aisle was going to explode, right? And I was talking about what I was reading. He was talking about his wife. And it took me a second to catch on. I'm like, whoa, time out now, buddy. I was like, no, I was like, look, I got new glasses. Okay. And I was reading my bifocals to read the fine print. I said, that's what I was talking to. I'm not that way. And I said, plus, if you touch me, I'm an endangered species. He says, what does that mean? I said, I'm a police officer. Just let you know. So don't kick my ass. So I don't want to take you to jail.
I love it.
But yeah, but that was very embarrassing because everybody in the aisle, it was a busy evening too, right? And I was like, whatever. Gosh. So what's bad though is I found out these cheaters I've been using wrecked my eyes.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Brenda would tell you, like she told me, hello, if it's not prescribed to you, don't use it. Well, that's why they call cheaters.
Yep.
But anyways, no, I know exactly where you're coming from. So yeah, it's just amazing because I did a lot of research on you before you came on the show, and I was just amazed about the history and background on you. It's not that you dabble in this; you're like across the board.
Yeah.
And a lot of psychics or mediums or people with abilities, however you want to call them, sometimes will not like to dabble in the paranormal or anything like that because it's like, oh, no, that's easy wooby stuff. I don't like to mess with that. I only want good, positive vibes. Yeah. Well, like I try to tell them, if you believe in good, you got to believe in evil. Yeah. If you believe in yang, you got to believe in yin and yang. So, right.
And what I've always done my entire life, Chris, I never limited myself. I never said, well, I'm this, but I can't do that, or I'm not that. I studied all the disciplines and all the spiritual psychic tools and techniques. I studied religions and I studied spiritualism and I studied runes and crystals and the Ouija board and the pendulum and dowsing rods and the tarot cards. And I didn't limit myself to any one thing. And by doing that, I discovered that I could learn and use effectively a wide variety of tools and techniques. And I think that sometimes there are situations occur that one specific tool or technique may be better in that specific set of circumstances than another. And so if you're versed in that, you can use that. You can do that. So, I've never limited myself. I don't to this day. It's like, okay, if it's out there, let's learn it and let's see what I can do with that technique. And it either works for me or it doesn't. If it doesn't, I put it aside. If it does work, I keep it, I enhance it, I move on. And I work through a wide range of things that way. And so with my clients and in my own life for myself as well, but for my clients, I've always resorted to a wide range of things, whatever is going to be the most beneficial to help them, to be the most accurate for them, and to give them the best advice for their future and how to progress, how to react, how to act, so on and so forth. So I've never said, well, I'm this, but I'm not that, because there's a lot of psychics, for example, they say, well, I can read for other people, but I can't read for myself. Well, that's because you don't want to hear what's coming.
Absolutely. That is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. He's telling you the truth.
What the other side's going to tell you. If you're a good psychic, of course you can read for yourself. I've always read for myself very accurately. And, it's like clients may not want to hear what you're going to tell them if it's the truth, but it's kind of that same way with psychics that say they can't read for themselves. Sure, you can. You just may not want to hear what the other side's going to tell you. But I've never limited myself to any set practice or whatever. And I've never said, well, I can do this, but I can't do that. I've opened myself up to all of it. And I've been successful in learning all of it, been proficient with all of it. And it's given me a wider range of things to help my clients with than if I just doggedly pursued one avenue only.
Yeah, and you're right. And a lot of people are like, well, Grizzly, I didn't know you were Catholic. I'm not Catholic. You know, and I don't put down any type of religion, whatever that you believe in, that's fine. And people are like, well, why do you believe in your God and not my God? And I was like, no, I believe in a God, right?
Right.
A person, a ball of energy, you know,
Right.
that's what a
Right.
God is.
Yeah.
And most of the religions across the board are mostly similar. Some it's a little bit different, but they still have the same stories, you know.
Yeah.
So
I
back
agree.
in the 4th century, the Romans actually took the original Bible and translated it into the King James Version.
Mhm.
And of course, they didn't translate it right because the Greek and
Exactly.
Hebrew, and they
Yep.
took out books of the Bible.
There's a lot of
Enoch,
errors.
and
There's a lot of
yes,
mistranslation. Yep.
yes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is written that in the book it says it is complete from beginning to end. But unfortunately, man has altered that
Yep.
years and years and years ago.
Oh yeah.
So I do not say what you can and cannot believe in. Only thing I have to say is that you have to have faith and you got to be pure. Because yeah, some of my prayers are kind of Catholic. Some of mine are. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I grew up Southern Baptist, and we used to play records backwards at church. You know,
Excuse me.
the Beatles are dead, John Lennon, and my dad was
Satan
like,
is coming for your
yeah,
soul. Yeah.
and my dad
Yeah.
was like, Linda, where are all my records going? And I was like, I was just a kid. I was like, I didn't say anything because we were taking them to church every Sunday. And before church, we'd have a burn barrel and we would cast them into the fire.
Yep.
And we would have our own prayers and stuff like that. So
Yep.
my mom was Catholic, got her converted over to Baptist. And, you know, it is what it is, right?
I was raised
So,
Presbyterian.
yeah. So, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So,
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. It's just like in the movies and horror movies where that guy's going against that vampire with the cross, and he's like, "Get back!
Yeah.
Go to hell, demon!" And then the vampire's just like, ha, 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 "You're not scaring me." And then 30 minutes later, he comes back and does it again, and the vampire's like, "Ah!" You know what? He had faith in that religious object that triggered his mind that I've got the power and I know somebody's backing me up to get rid of this evil demonic thing. And that's what it is. And the study's been done on that. You know, they put people on MRIs.
Yeah. I have a lot of good stories to tell you about those type of things. I have done, like I said, I've done paranormal investigations and paranormal research since I was 11. And
wow, man.
Yeah.
Incredible.
There is not one single instance that I know of, and I've studied a lot, I've experienced a lot, I've read a lot, I've done a lot of in-person paranormal investigations, so on and so forth. I do not know of one single instance where a exorcist, priest, psychic, medium, spiritualist, whatever, went to close a portal, quote unquote, cast out a demon, quote unquote, get a spirit to go away, whatever. I don't know of one instance ever that has been successful, because 99.9% of the time, whatever the person does increases the activity and makes it worse.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And the reason behind that is that we have so much misunderstanding, misinterpretation, misrepresentation of the things that we experience. And our knee-jerk default reaction is, if something occurs, it has to be demonic, malevolent, evil, satanic, whatever. And that's usually due to our religious upbringing.
And
now,
that is correct. Now, I don't mean to interrupt you, but people give Satan so much credibility because, you know, Satan is not like God.
Right.
Satan cannot be everywhere. You know, God asked Satan, "Where do you come from?" He says, "I come from here and there, and I walk upon here, up and down," referring to up to heaven and down to earth and walk around earth. So
you want to know something real interesting about Satan? When I was studying for my ordination, you have all these concordances that you look at. And the old joke among people studying for the ministry is if you're strong, you use a Strong's. If you're crude, you use a Cruden. If you're young in the faith, you use a Young's. Well, I read through all the concordances. I did all the Bible studies and expositions, and everybody's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the really interesting thing is that I found a non-biased analysis of Satan. And in the Old Testament, the Jews did not believe in a satanic being per se.
That is correct.
The thing that was translated Satan as a person, the word that was translated Satan literally meant to the Jews an obstacle or a stumbling block.
That is correct.
If I was trying to get a loan and the banker said, nah, yeah, the banker was a Satan. He was an obstacle. He was a stumbling block to my financial well-being, so on and so forth. So that the concept of a literal Satan as a personage, as a physical being or an entity or spirit or whatever, that was not present in Jewish theology. That didn't occur. So that was a very interesting thing to find out. And then the thing that I learned over the years was that people would, especially if you were raised biblically, and the Bible is full of paranormal things, but it's sanctioned by the Bible.
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, he's right.
If you go outside of the Bible, then that's evil, demonic, malevolent, whatever. So that's the knee-jerk reaction that people have to the experiences they have. So people automatically assume if something happens, there's a cold spot in the room, they see a mist, they see a person, the person vanishes, this, that, and the other. Oh my God, a demon's after me, a spirit is evil. No, this is the normal life that surrounds us all the time. And that's what we have to understand. Where you and I sit right now, and where all of our listeners sit in the show, there are invisible radio waves going through the air around all of us, wherever we're at right now. Yeah. We don't hear the music. We don't hear the talk. We don't hear the news. But if we take a radio and plug it in, or we got a battery powered, or we use our cell phone, we got an app or whatever, and we tune in to a specific thing in the air, oh, there's country music, there's jazz, there's talk radio, there's news. That's going on around us all the time right now, but we're not aware of it. Likewise, all of these entities, intelligences, spirits, beings, deceased loved ones, all of these are around us wherever we're at right now.
That is true.
We're not aware of them unless the conditions get right for them to manifest, or we meditate, we tune in, we do whatever we do to communicate with that and make connection with that. So we have to plug in the radio and tune to the right frequency. But these things are always there, and they're normal. And going back to the getting rid of the demon, closing the portal, whatever. There's two stories I'll tell you. Both are funny. Yes, they do see us naked. Yes, Norma, they do see us naked, baby. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So I'll tell you two funny stories. I'll tell you two funny stories. One has to do with when I was doing the History Channel. Another thing has to do with there was a I will not say the name here. If I did, anyone in the paranormal community or that knew anything, funny, not funny, it is funny.
Well, a lot of people don't realize this, Mr. Russell. You know, so whatever you think you're doing behind closed doors, your loved ones are watching.
That's right, baby. That's right.
They are. Your mom and dad, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, they are watching.
See what's going on. They see what's going on. Because listen, I've had people on the other side tell me, for clients, say, hey, tell them I saw you went to the cemetery and you put a rock on my headstone, so they see, they know. But anyways, this I'm not going to say the name, but if I did, anybody that's in the know would know who this was. A world famous personage in the paranormal community, multiple New York Times bestselling books, on and on and on, household name. He was a friend with my wife's friend, who was a psychic, supposedly, and they worked
I know
together.
exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, I bet you do. They
Yes, sir.
together. They worked together on a number of cases, and one of these cases was a case in New York. And my wife and I were living in New York at the time. She's a New York native, and they worked on this case in New York with these people. This family had this haunted house. They were experiencing all these manifestations, and so this world famous personage and our psychic friend went and they closed the portal and stopped all the spiritual activity, made the spirits go away and everything else, blah, blah, blah. Now that, history is written by the victors, right? So
Yes, sir.
that was the party line that they successfully did this. Okay, problem solved. Well, the funny thing was that I was browsing at the bookstore with my wife one day. Love to read. I'm an author and I love to read, love to write. I was browsing at the bookstore with my wife, and I went over to the paranormal shelf, of course, and I see this book and it grabs my attention, and I get this book, and lo and behold, this book is about that experience that these people had with the world famous personage and the psychic friend, so on and so forth. And I'm like, oh my God, but it's written by the people that experienced it. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get this book. So I get the book. I told my wife, I said, my God, look at this, look at this, look at this. So the people that write the book tell, yeah, these people came, they did this, they did that, they went through their machinations, they proclaimed the portal closed and the spirit's gone, blah, blah, blah. The activity not only did not cease, it returned stronger than ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So what we have to understand is we think we have these powers, and we think we have this control over this mystical invisible realm. Number one, we don't. Okay. Second thing we have to do is we have to learn to respect this realm and interact with this realm in a respectable way, not challenge, not curse, not do this, not do that, and realize this is a normal part of the world that's around us all the time. Okay. So that was the interesting thing to find out there. The second thing was, in the same vein, when I was shooting the TV pilot for the History Channel, we went to this place, this historic location, and this lady came up to me and she goes, I have to talk to you when you've got time between filming. This ghost tried to kill me. I was like, oh my God, no ghost tried to kill you. She said, yeah, this ghost tried to kill me. I said, okay, we'll talk. So came a break in the filming. And by the way, anybody that thinks TV is glamorous, it's not.
That is true, ladies and gentlemen. That is true.
12 to 14 to 16-hour days, and you're so tired you don't even know what planet you're on. But anyway, so we get a break in the filming, and she comes up to me and said, okay, let's talk. So we'll go in this other room in the house where nobody's around. You can tell me what happened. So she said, okay. I was standing in my kitchen, and the cupboard doors flew open by themselves, and this plate flew out of the cupboard, flew at high speed across the room, just like somebody had flung it, and hit the wall right behind me where I was at, and shattered and fell on the floor. This ghost tried to kill me. I started laughing.
Wow.
I said, okay, ghost didn't try and kill you. The ghost wasn't even trying to hurt you. Number one, if they did, they would have. I said, psychically, I can instantly ascertain what's been going on in your life. And I can tell you that the other side has been trying to get your attention and communicate to you for your benefit.
Bingo.
Yes, for a long time, and you've been ignoring it. And finally, they're like, okay, ignore this. You can't ignore this. So I explained that to her, and I go, da-da-da-da-da. So she understood, and she got it. So so many of the things that we assign as evil or malevolent or dangerous or demonic or satanic or whatever is totally misrepresentation and misunderstanding on our parts. And that usually goes back to our religious upbringing or dogma, tradition, or whatever the beliefs are.
Right.
And we have to understand that, look, if there's an invisible being, entities, source of energy, power, whatever, Godhead out there, and it needs to communicate with us and get through to us and say, hey, how else is it going to do that? It's going to do it by some means that we think are scary, unnatural, weird, whatever, because we've been taught those things don't happen. If they do, you're nuts. If they do, you're crazy. I can't tell you how many clients, Chris, over the years have called me, and the first words out of their mouth was, "You're my last resort before I check myself into the loony bin."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They've suddenly started experiencing physical paranormal phenomena that they've told this isn't possible, this isn't that, whatever, and so they think they've gone nuts. And so these are the things that we have to address. These are the things that we have to deal with, and we have to understand this is the normal state of affairs for this world.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm going to nail a couple of points, ladies and gentlemen, when he's talking about. So first off, if I go before any of you all, I'm going to come back and haunt the living shit out of every one of you guys just for fun.
Hell yes. Hell
I'm going to tickle your feet, pull the covers off.
Yeah.
So, so ladies and gentlemen, let's use Norma. Okay. I'm not picking on Norma or Scarborough.
Yes, let's pick on Norma.
So Norma's house, let's say it's active with paranormal activity, right? And she has regular people come over 2 or 3, 4 times a month to investigate her, whatever's going on.
Right.
Now, if you were that person or spirits in that house, would you not, like either get mad at some point, be like, would you stop and leave us alone?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's evil or a demon.
Exactly.
Now, sometimes we're like, oh, here comes more people. Let's go and hide. And that's why they don't get any activity. And, it's not like you can flip on a light switch, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly right. Right.
That's why everybody's trying to use all this technology, mapping technology to try to figure out what they can and cannot pick up when there's nothing going on.
Yep.
So that is correct.
That's when the spirits choose not to communicate with you. And another thing that, and we'll get to Scarborough Sasquatch Station. We'll get to that question here in a second. Another thing that people don't understand, you're dealing with, whether it's a nature spirit, whether it's a guardian angel, whether it's a deceased loved one, whether it's an entity or a spiritual presence or power that we don't even understand what is. You're dealing with an intelligence. And so when you go in, you set up the REM pod and you say, if there's anybody here, set off the REM pod. And the REM pod goes off and you go, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. It's like, if somebody come up to you in real life and did that, you'd smack them upside the head. It's like you're not dealing with the dancing bear, the trained monkey here. You're dealing with an intelligent spirit that's giving you a demonstration, an answer, a response to a question. Your response should be, thank you. Is there any way that I can help you? Can you help me? Can I follow up with a question? Is there some type of communication we need? And what I need people to understand when they're doing paranormal investigations, when you get something like that, you're not getting a communication, you're getting a demonstration.
Right.
The communication comes when the psychic, like myself, comes in and says, okay, who did that? Why did they do that? Why are you here? What are you wanting to communicate? Do you have a message? So on and so on and so forth. But to address the question real quick about the scratches, there have been a lot of people over the years that I've dealt with, and a really interesting thing happened the other day on a podcast interview I was on. We were discussing this very issue, and the host said, I was scratched by a spirit because that was the only way they could get my attention. And I said, oh, well, that makes sense. Other times investigating this over the years, and I'm not saying this is the only case or every case or whatever, but a lot of times when I've been called to investigate things like that, people have scratched themselves in their sleep, didn't realize they did it. Dog jumped up on the bed, scratched them. They didn't realize it happened. Then they look like, oh, where did these scratches come from? Sometimes, not in every case, sometimes there's drug abuse. alcohol abuse, mental illness, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things we have to be very, 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 very careful when we're investigating the paranormal, and we have to rule out all the obvious causes that may be available, and then try to assign that to something to something that's paranormal. And then in doing that, we have to not knee jerk to the malevolent evil trying to hurt me, da 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 da. Because look, I've done paranormal investigations since I was 11. I've never been scratched, never been hit, never been pushed, never been thrown down the stairs, never been told get out, nothing else. So these are things that we have to be aware of, and have to understand that we may be defaulting to a position of dogma or tradition or ritual or religious upbringing, whatever. That's not the case. That's not truth, not reality.
Now, some people, I believe, with my faith and whatever y'all want to believe in, that people can actually manifest that negativity in themselves to show on their body.
Yeah.
And I forgot the term of it. It's something like PK, but there's an actual term for it.
Yeah.
Now, Scarborough, if it is an actually true scratch in threes, okay, people assume, we don't know because nobody's an expert, that is mocking the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That's what has been passed around for many, many years, especially in the Catholic Roman Church and so forth. You know, they're just mocking it. But do we know that for a fact? No.
No.
Sometimes it may be a loved one just trying to get your attention and finally had enough energy to try to grab a hold of you. And they didn't mean to leave scratches. And they were just trying to, you know, grab your arm and like, hey, hey. So, and that's why in EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, is that, you know, we'll be standing right next to Mr. Russell in a small room. And when we play it back, the spirit is screaming. Yes. And we're like, we never heard that. Nobody was talking. It's because they're trying to get our attention because we can't hear them.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
What we are saying is don't always assume the worst.
Exactly.
Okay. And that is a default in human nature. I'm sorry.
It is. It is.
You know, everybody says we'll always prepare for the worst. So if it doesn't happen, I'm better off, right? Okay, I agree with that. Now, Norma made a statement, Mr. Russell. My law enforcement dad always told me you don't need to fear ghosts, just the living. Now, my grandfather said the same thing.
Amen. Now, that's the truth. That's the truth.
It is. Now, in extreme circumstances, when people have bought or built on Indian burial grounds, ancient whatever lands, whatever,
with disrespect.
Yes. Now you are going to have some activity.
Oh, you are.
Just like the Warrens were trying to prove that guy, you know, was told by Satan to do that murder, you know, that they actually did a show on. Now the show wasn't 100% legit. They added a lot to it to make you like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? So, but it is a concern to think about. It's not something to fear. Now, in the Bible, it says, fear me not over 300 or 365 times. And fact checkers out there, check me. Because I made sure and passed that one on the test, ladies and gentlemen. So, and the reason why they say that is that, you know, you got to stand strong. You got to have your faith. And
you do.
A lot of people don't know that Satan or his angels that fell with him, which were thousands upon tens of thousands from heaven, right? And people don't realize that. I mean, it was a lot. It was a third of God's angels that fell. So, and they're walking upon the earth. Yeah, they're causing havoc like little Johnny when he gets drunk and acts stupid. I mean, that is the truth. Scarborough says, I had this happen underneath my shirt and jean jacket. Thought I felt this action, thought I did not notice until the next day, taking a shower, seeing the scratches. I play, and I know I shouldn't say this on the air, but I play a lot of drug addicts videos that people make on my personal webpage
Mhm.
because of the drug addiction is so bad, and it's called the zombie walk. And if you don't
Yeah.
believe it, go to TikTok, go to
Yep.
YouTube, you'll see it.
Yep.
And it's sad. But, you know, Scarborough, and nobody's saying that, you know, what you had did not happen.
Right. Right.
Scarborough is a type of person that he's very open-minded. He has had some experiences with the paranormal. He's came on the show before and explained that. He's dealt with things that people's never seen before, and I hope I never see it. I don't know. I don't know if I can hold my crucifixes. I carry many. I don't
This
know if
is
I can
my
hold them
purview,
still.
baby. This is where I live.
Yeah, right. So, you know, I'm not afraid of any man. I'll tell you that straight up. But
I
some of the
believe that,
stuff,
brother. I believe
yeah,
that, brother.
but some of the stuff that I have interviewed people, and some of the stuff that I seen growing up, and some of the stuff that I know people seeing, oh hell no. You know, I mean, I may not be able to run, but guess what? You're going to fall and trip somehow, and I'm going to get out there.
You wouldn't be able to hang around me because I'll tell you, I've had stuff happen that just is mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing.
Right. Isn't that true? Scarborough says, visiting a friend in their basement, they were atheists and I was religious. So let me tell you a story about this, Scarborough and Mr. Russell.
Yeah.
So in my early 20s, my neighbor Tim, I ain't gonna say his last name, we were in his garage and we're drinking a beer. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah, when in 20s. I mean, I was married. I had my own house.
Right.
So we're drinking beer, and he was the biggest atheist that you can ever meet. He was like, you know, I got this. I don't know why you go to church and all this. And we were drinking, and he got on that subject again. I was like, stop. I said, let's talk about this. He's like, okay, let's talk about it. And he was ready for me. I was like, okay, so you say there's no God. He's like, yes, that is correct. So you believe in something. He's like, huh? I was like, yeah, so you do believe in something.
Yep.
So now let's take all that off the table. Let's say that you don't believe in anything, heaven or hell, whatnot, and you do your thing and whatever, and you die, and you turn around and found out, holy crap, there is a hell, and I'm doomed. Now, without that being said, let's say that you followed the Bible or whatever religion that you claim to be in,
right,
to the T as much as possible, because we're all sinners. Okay. And you did the 10 Commandments or whatever religion you're in, whatever they say, and you live your life and you die. And you realize that there was not a heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what's going to happen? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, stop and think about it. Everybody that you came in contact with is going to say this. Tim was a good person. He would take the shirt off his back. He bent over backwards for people. He always was there to help everybody in need. He was just an excellent person. He's a rare breed. And I said, people are going to remember you for life. And he turned around and he was like, I'll be damned. And if there is a heaven, I'm going to be safe. And I was like, yes, sir. And you know what? A week later, he switched. Yep, he switched. So, I mean, that's just the best way I can explain it to anybody. You know, I'm not, I never force what I believe on anybody. I'm not that guy, you know?
Yeah. Well, we can't because, you know, it's like, you know, when you're talking about any specific belief system, there needs to be proof that that belief system works. And if you don't have proof that that belief system works, then you can respect people that want to follow that for whatever reason, but you have to acknowledge, okay, there's nothing there to hang your hat on. And that's, you know, going back to what I said, you know, from an early age, I wanted to find out what worked, what didn't, what was real, what didn't. And, you know, I studied every religion, every philosophy, everything on the planet. And it's like, okay, you and I can sit here tonight and invent from whole cloth a philosophy or religion, postulate something and run with it and go from there, because the human mind is incredibly inventive and creative. And there are people out there that will respond if we said we worship bananas and bananas give us healing power and enable us to see the UFOs, there are people out there that are going to respond to that and going to join our cult, you know?
Well, hey, look at the Mormons.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
And no
right.
disrespect to anybody that believes in Mormonism. I mean, I'm just using that as an example. That's only what, 200 or 300 years old.
We can go to any religion and talk about that. You know, I've had clients over the years that have come to me. I had a guy, an Indian client in India, and they talked to me and he said, John, he said, you know, I have to ask you a question. He said, I grew up, you know, believing this way, and it does not work, but I'm scared to let go of it. Why? And I said, well, that's a simple answer. I said, you know, whatever you are, whether you're Hindu or you're Buddhist or you're Christian or you're this or you're that or the other thing, regardless of what you are, we're taught that there is some kind of a deity. And this deity has to be obeyed, or we're going to either go to hell or perdition or some type of isolation, or be
purgatory,
flea or a jackal or whatever, this, that, and the other. And we're taught that this is the only way and everybody else is the enemy. And I said, what you have to understand is this is ingrained in us from the time we're children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when you grow up and you realize, hey, this shit don't work. But
right.
You're reluctant to get rid of it because it's been ingrained in you all your life. And what the fear is if I stop this, God's going to punish me somehow. And I explained it to him that way. And he was like, that's the first time anything's ever made sense in my life. So, you know, this is what we have to look at. I remember my wife's Jewish, and we went to synagogue, we went to temple, and I'm looking at, you know, the Jews don't believe in Jesus. Jews don't believe in the New Testament. And so I'm reading the Bible, which is their Old Testament. I'm looking through it while we're there in church. And it was the most marvelous thing because of the honesty. Because I would read through things and they would say the ancient language here was this, and we don't know the exact translation, but we believe it may have been this, and that's our best guess. And I was like,
he said, ladies and gentlemen, keyword believe.
What awesome honesty! What awesome honesty! And then it's like going back again to, you know, our interpretation of the Bible. One of the things, you shall not suffer a witch to live. And if you go back to the original language and the original translation, the best translation is you shall not suffer a poisoner to live. And you go back in the context of the time and people get pissed off and they say, well, I'm going to get rid of this family. They had a communal well. Now I'm poisoning the well. I'll kill these SOBs. And so don't suffer a poisoner to live, because if you do, they're going to kill everybody. So that was the thought behind that. And I remember reading also in the concordances when I studied this, when I was getting my ordination, and that we all think it was the serpent in the Garden of Eden. And if you look at the very best translations, the best translations are not a reptilian type creature, but more like a gorilla.
He's actually true, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, yes.
So we have all these things that are just so far out there in the stratosphere that we don't understand, we take for granted, and we're willing to kill each other over these things. You know, it's like you don't believe the way I do. I got to kill you because you're evil. God says get rid of you. And I was talking with somebody the other day, and I said, in the Old Testament, I believe there's over 100 instances where God committed genocide. And genocide is, I don't like this group of people, go kill them.
Yep.
And I was talking with a dear friend of mine one day, and I said, are you familiar with that scripture? And she said, yeah. And I said, let's bring this up to modern day and put it in Texanese. I grew up in West Texas. And I said, if you were told by God, let's back up. If you had a neighbor, a couple of people you loved, and they had a kid and a dog, and you made quilts together, and you hung out and you barbecued together, and this, that, and the other, and God came and said, you got to go kill these people. And the woman became pregnant. She was going to have another kid. You got to run her through the belly with a sword. That's in the scripture. Look it up. And not only kill her, but kill the unborn in her belly. Would you be able to do that? These are people you grew up with, next to, you loved, you played canasta with, you've had pool parties, you've made birthdays together and all this. God says, go kill them. And she's pregnant, but run her through the belly with a sword and kill the unborn too. Would you be able to do that? And she looked at me and she goes, no. And I said, well, there you go. We need to be so careful of what we believe and what we adhere to and what we condemn and how
That
we
is
judge
correct.
others, you know.
Right.
And it's a process that we need to understand that, you know, in trying to negative spirits occult. What does that even mean? You've got to be so careful in your judgment of people and what you adhere to and how you judge and condemn others. And, you know, that's the thing that we need to be aware of. And we need to understand that Grizzly doesn't have the answer. John Russell doesn't have the answer. No church has the answer. No group has the answer. No teaching has the answer. We're all striving. We're all getting bits and pieces of the puzzle, but none of us has anything that we can come to you and say, okay, you can hang your hat on this. None of us has that.
Right.
And we have to be
No.
respectful of each other. We have to be tolerant of each other, loving with each other. And we have to understand that we're all trying to figure this thing out, and none of us have. You know, if we did, if any of us had figured this out, we wouldn't be in need. We wouldn't be
Nope.
sick. There wouldn't be kids in St. Jude's Children's Hospital. We wouldn't be poor. There wouldn't be poverty. There wouldn't be disease. There wouldn't be pandemics. If we had figured this out, none of this would exist. But look, folks, we have not figured this out. We're working on it, and we're trying to. But to do that, we all have to come together. And we all have to put aside our biases, our traditions, our rituals, our dogma, and we have to say, okay, look, let's try and figure out what works and what doesn't. And if what works goes against my personal belief system, then I got to get rid of my personal belief system, because the truth has to be more important than what I believe.
Well, you know, in all aspects, ladies and gentlemen, he is right. Mr. Russell is correct. But the problem I have is that people will take whatever's written in whatever book they want to choose.
Yeah.
And they fit them to their lives and to their standards as of today.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Norma says, beautifully said, Mr. Russell. Beautifully said.
Thank you. Bless your heart. Thank you.
So, and the reason why I say that, I'm not going to mention topics. I'm not going to mention anything but this. So I never judge a person. I never have during law enforcement. You know, I may have think some bad things about people that keep doing the same stupid crap over and over. You know, then it's passed down to their sons and grandchildren. It's like, damn,
Preach
what
it,
the hell
brother.
y'all
Preach
doing?
it.
You know it? But, you know, I always get this, Mr. Russell. Well, God loves all of his children, and he loves me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And they're like, huh? I'm like, yeah, he loves you as you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you something. When you die, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you a heads up.
Yeah.
That's on you, not on me.
You know,
And they're like, what?
We can't think that we can live the way we want to and not have some type of consequences.
Hey,
you know,
right.
There are consequences to our actions. And that was driven home to me when we had, I predicted the first, way back when, the first financial crash we had. I predicted that months or even a year or so in advance. And it's a matter of record that I did. I told all my clients, I told all the radio interviews I was on, so on and so forth. And it happened exactly as I said, when I said, and so on and so forth. And the amazing thing to me was, over the years, as this kept recurring, as it's recurring right now, 3 banks have failed so far that I know of. Credit Suisse was the latest one to go down. The
Now
thing
they're talking
that,
Fifth Third.
yeah, and oh, is Fifth Third gone down? Damn.
They're thinking it's going to.
Yeah. So what happened when this big thing occurred was the other side explained to me that our actions here in this physical realm, what I think about the crash today, Lord, we're in trouble, folks. Our actions here in this physical realm have repercussions in the invisible realm on the other side. And one of the ways that was driven home to me, people find coins. People are coins are a sign our loved ones are near us, spirit guides are near us, or whatever.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And I would find these coins, like I've been a biker since I was 15, and I would pull into a gas station with my bike. And when you're pulling into a gas station, there's oil, there's dirt, there's sand, whatever. If you're not paying attention, you're going to hit that, you're going to go down. And so you're looking very, very carefully. And I would look, everything was clear. I'd pull in, I'd put my bike on the side stand, start pumping gas. There was nothing there. I would have seen it. And then when I finished pumping gas, put the nozzle back in the thing, in the pump, and then turn back around, there's 3 coins laying at my feet.
Wow.
Yeah. So these things would happen. And then when the first financial crash happened that I predicted, that the other side gave me that prediction, that disappeared. I never found coins again for a year or so. And the message that the other side conveyed to me was that, look, you idiots, you assholes, whatever you do here has repercussions in the invisible realm. It's not just you here on this realm. It has repercussions in the invisible realm. What we do here interacts back and forth. What they do here, there interacts with us back and forth. So I began to understand that we need to understand what we do has consequences, and what we do has repercussions in other realms besides just here. And we think, okay, well, I'll do this, I'll do that. There's no matter, I'll live this out. It doesn't matter, I won't be around. These ripples spread very, very far in this pond where we throw the stone. And we have got to understand that. And we have got to, I'm not preaching against capitalism. I'm not talking about don't get rich. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just saying we have to understand and think through that all of our actions have consequences, not only here in this physical realm, but also in the invisible realm, and the way that it affects things around us, the way that energy acts and interacts with us. And we have to be more responsible and more appreciative of how all this fits together, and be respectful of that.
No, I mean, you're totally right. And okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. I know somebody out there in La La Land wants to come on the show and ask him direct questions live.
Yeah.
So if you want to come live on the show, let me know. I'll send you the link. I'll give you my personal Facebook. You can PM
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we still got to talk about UFOs too.
Yeah. I mean, come on. So okay. I gotta ask. Okay.
All right.
Scarborough says, all right, Scarborough, I'm going to send you the link here. So, which is really funny. Some of those people in the audience know this. So before I moved, I was told I was moving, which I was like, okay, whatever. And
Yeah.
I was
And then
interviewing
it
this.
happened.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing this one psychic, and it's one of my go-to psychics. And she never asked me any questions. We'll just be talking. She's like, "Hey, I got to tell you something." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?" And she'll just like, I'm like, "Oh,
Right.
wow." So, anyways, and during one of her interviews, at the end of the show, she's like, "Oh, Grizzly, hold on." You know, she's real sweet. Hold on, Grizzly. You're gonna have to go see a dentist and get a tooth fixed. And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "I have got teeth." I'm like, "No, you're wrong." Well, guess what happened, Mr. Russell?
Yeah.
Sunday night,
Yeah.
I was sucking on a piece of hard candy, red
And
hot
boom.
candy,
Yeah.
and one piece would not dissolve. And I was like, "What in the heck?" So I spit it out in my hand. I'm like, "That's
Hello,
half my tooth." Yeah. It was actually a crown. I did not know. So, yes. Come on, JR, bring the UFOs. Yahoo. Okay.
Oh, we will. We're going to talk about the UFOs. We're going to talk about the UFOs. I got to tell you, Grizzly, there was I had this, before I changed credit card processors for my readings, there was a woman that was in charge of my processing company. And she called for a reading. And I said, okay, so I'm giving her this reading, and we get down to the end of the reading, and she loves the reading. She's like, wow, this is the first reading she's ever had in her life. And she's like, this is really amazing. This is really astonishing. So we get to the end of the reading, and I said, you're going to move. And I said, you're going to go to Nevada, and I believe Las Vegas, I think I told her, but I know for sure Nevada. And I said, you're going to start your own business, but it's going to be doing what you're doing now, credit card processing, but it's going to be your own business. And I said, you're going to make more money than you've ever made before. And she laughed out loud. She laughed out loud. She said, John, she said, everything you've told me so far has just been astonishing. But she said, let me tell you something. She said, I hate Nevada. I have no intention of moving. She said it would take a financial miracle to get into doing the same type of business for myself. And, I'm pretty much topped out for financial income in this field. I said, write all this down and then holler at me in a few months, let me know what happened. So sure enough, a few months later, she calls me up and she goes, John, I moved to Nevada. I started my own credit card company. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life.
See what I'm saying? Ladies and gentlemen, the real deal people are here, and Mr. Russell is one of them.
There you go. There you go.
Like I said, and I have to. So, and also during one of the interviews during this process, they said that you are going to write a book, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Come on now. And lo and behold, I'm actually in the process of writing a book about
and
psychics.
You should, and it's got to get out there because it's going to.
I would love to have you in it. If I would be honored to have some of you in it, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
That would be an honor. So I send you Scarborough. I sent you the link. Also, another thing I like to do, and what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? You know about my special group, right? My go-to psychics that we work on, like little projects here and there. I'm going to extend that invitation out to Mr. Russell. These are people that work for the DIA, CIA, FBI, the Stargate program with the U.S. I like to send that invitation out to that group, and my other co-host in one of my other shows that I do with him, he does stuff with psychics like I do, but we don't tell each other because that way you don't come to me and like, ooh, what are y'all working on? No, I cannot taint anybody, right?
Yep.
So Scarborough, that's some hard candy, Normal. Yeah. I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't dissolve. And I was like, there's no flavor. So, and
that tooth missing, Jack. That tooth gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's really funny, Norma, is my mom was like, "You're supposed to suck on it, not chew it."
Not
And I
bite
was
it,
like,
not chew it. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, "How many licks does it take to get to the
You get
center
to
of a
the center
Tootsie
of a
Pop?"
Tootsie Roll Pop.
Yeah, we never known because I can't make it that far, So, yeah. All right, Mrs. Scarborough, he must be slicking it up. Norma's laughing. I love it. I love it, Norma. Like to have fun, but no, it's always amazing to talk with people with abilities, especially with your history and your background. It's people finally hearing it from other people besides me.
Yeah.
Because there for a while it's like, oh God, Grizzly's on a rampage, he's on a
Yeah.
roll, and it's like no. And the reason why I got into it spiritually, somebody keeps moving my spit guard on my mic. You can't see it; it's off screen. You see how it curves? It keeps moving, and I'm not even touching it. And my
Yeah.
hands are away from it. So,
Yeah.
and now for some reason, my beard's like getting mushroom. It's
There
like
you
I'm
go.
statically charged. I don't know why, but I forgot what I was saying now. I got so excited. Dang. Yes, everybody, I know. I apologize. Miss Scarborough, come on.
We got to talk to UFOs now. We got to talk about
Yeah,
UFOs.
Norma is really laughing now, ladies and gentlemen. It's funny because people ask me, like, you do so many shows, you're on so many different people's programs and stuff, and it's like, well, I don't know, I don't ask for it. It happens.
It just happens. It just happens.
And we started another 2 shows on top of everything else. I just let the cat out of the bag on one of them. Sorry.
There you go.
But it's just like it does keep you busy. I do have people reaching out, be like, "Hey, we have been watching you." So, and it's like, "Nah, you're not the real deal yet. You just want to make money off of me and all the other stuff." So, Shaylin, I got your message. It took me forever to write. I don't like highlighting myself. It's okay, girl. Perfect. I'm talking about you live on the show right now. Where is Mr. Scarborough Nation? He must be getting fixed up, putting makeup on.
There you go.
So,
well, let's talk about UFOs in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll tell you a really, really phenomenal UFO story. I write about this in my first book. I did not believe in UFOs. I had all these phenomenal paranormal manifestations. I had this psychic gift. I got around the age of 20. I had these concrete physical paranormal manifestations. I didn't believe in UFOs. I just didn't. I saw the TV programs, the interviews, read the stories, the magazines, the books, whatever. I was like, nope. So I was, I grew up in West Texas. In West Texas, you have hellacious, I can't exaggerate, weather. And I came out of this building where I was in, and my car was parked across this very narrow 2-lane street. And I could see the parking lot from where I stood. I could see my car just a very short distance away. And when I came out, it was overcast and this blast of wind hit me in the face. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. We're in for one of our infamous thunderstorms, maybe even a tornado, whatever. I better run for my car. And so I look over at my car, and coming down from the low clouds above, there was this column of a cloud that came down and set down in the parking lot by my car. And the column was about 4 or 5 feet wide, something like that. And it rotated and boiled and churned. And I'm looking at this thing. As I look at it, there are these big orbs, like maybe the size of tether balls, maybe even basketballs, that would come and extrude from the cloud and then go back in.
Wow.
And they were red and orange and yellow and green and purple and blue. And I'm looking at this thing, and Chris, honest to God, I'm telling you the truth. All of these paranormal experiences, everything else I had, I'm looking at this and I went, okay, I've had a stroke. Something's happened. I've gone crazy. I've gone nuts. This can't be real. I'm going to go to my car. I'm going to drive to the hospital. I'm seriously thinking this to myself. And I'm going to say, guys, I'm having these hallucinations. Check me in, figure out what's wrong. So I'm looking at this thing, and as it's rolling and churning and rotating, and all these orbs are going in and out of the thing, around the base of it in the parking lot, there's like pieces of paper, cardboard cups from straws and things that people have discarded, thrown
Right.
away, and they're not moving. They're totally stationary. And I'm like, well, this can't be right, because with this thing rotating, moving around, all this activity, these things can't be stationary. They've got to be moving. So this is crazy. So further evidence I'm nuts. So I get this irrational urge, and this voice says, walk toward the cloud. So I start walking toward the parking lot where the cloud is, and the cloud advances toward me.
Oh, no.
And I stop, and it stops. I back up, and it backs up. I walk toward it, it moves toward me. I stop, it stops. I back up, it backs up. So I'm like, okay. So I'm standing by the door that I came out of, and this guy comes out, this friend of mine, opens the door, whacks me in the back, and he goes, oh man, I'm sorry. He said, what are you doing standing so close to the door? And he looks up at the sky and he goes, oh boy, it looks like we're really in for it. And then he looks over in the parking lot and he goes, what the hell is that? And I'm like, thank you, God, I'm not nuts. I haven't had a stroke. I'm not crazy. He sees it too. So I go, watch this. And I walk towards the cloud. It moves towards me. I stop, it stops. I back up, it backs up. I do that a few times. I look at him and I say, isn't that the craziest thing you've ever seen? He looks at me like I'm the craziest thing he's ever seen. He's like, bye. He's out of there. He's scared to death. His car is parked the other way. He's gone. So I'm like, I'm left there with the mysterious cloud getting out. I'm like, what the hell do I do? So the cloud all of a sudden goes back up until the clouds above. The clouds start moving over really rapidly. So I'm like, okay, run for the car. So I run for my car, get in my car. I'm like, what the hell was that? So I back up. Now I know the town literally like the back of my hand, still do to this day. So I start driving, and I know all of the streets I'm on. And this is not an everything is bigger in Texas story. In Texas, it can, in 20 minutes, it can flood your yard or flood underpasses. Okay.
Right.
But this is unlike anything, Chris, I have ever seen in my entire life. It starts to rain, and it rains so hard that with my lights on, my wipers on high, I cannot see but about a foot past the hood of my car. There's cars angle parked on the street. I look out my passenger window, I can't see them. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, I'm panicked, man, because I can't keep driving this way. I'm going to hit somebody. Somebody's going to hit me. I'm going to sideswipe a parked car. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm poking along like 5 miles an hour, literally. And I know where the streets are. I've counted the streets. And I'm like, okay, there's a Sears Roebuck store back then. It was on Beauregard Street. And in the back, Twig Street, they had this big parking lot. They had an automotive center and a huge parking lot. And I said, okay, if I can find that parking lot, park in there, I don't care how I park, get out, run through the rain, get in the store, go down and look at the sporting goods till the storm passes, because they have the greatest sporting goods on the planet. Rods and reels and guns and knives, everything great. So I said, okay, this is my plan. So I'm driving along through this hellacious downpour, and I look up and I see this little bitty, teeny tiny red glow. And I'm like, what the hell is this damn thing? And then I nearly hit this car in front of me. It's the stoplight. It's the red light, the stoplight. I'm like, oh my God. Well, I know the street it's on. I'm like, okay, this is where I need to turn. The guy behind me nearly hits me. I'm like, this is the craziest goddamn thing I've ever seen. So the wipers are on high. The lights are on. I can't see but a foot in front of me. So I'm like, okay, I'll make this turn. So I'm poking along. The light turns. We're poking along. And we get up close to where the entrance to the back parking lot must be. And I had a bench seat, had an old station wagon. And I lean over, I'm holding onto the steering wheel, and I lean over toward the passenger window, trying to see where these angle parked cars are so that I don't scrape them. And as I'm leaned over that way, the rain that's been coming down that hard that there's not a foot of visibility instantly stops.
Wow.
I don't mean to go away. I don't mean it slacks off. It's like it's there that hard 1 second, the next second is gone. And there's visibility. It's still overcast, but there's visibility all the way down the street in front of me, all the way back, all the way around me. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I reach up, shut the wipers off. There's not even a mist hitting the windshield. And as I'm sitting there, these cars that are coming in the opposite direction start swerving into our lane and almost hitting cars. And people are honking, people are yelling. I'm like, what the hell is going on? People have gone insane. And people are jumping out of their cars into the street and pointing up the sky. And people are rolling down their windows and pointing out of their cars up the sky. And I'm like, what the hell? And I look up where they're pointing, and over the back of the Sears building, about 30 to 50 feet over the Sears building, is this silver metallic saucer, about 30 to 50 feet in diameter, hovering over the Sears building. No smoke, no flames, no nothing. It's just sitting there hovering over the Sears building. And I'm like, this cannot be happening. And I literally did a cartoon eye rub. I'm like, no, I can't be seeing this. Flying saucers aren't real. And there it is. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get out and get a better look at this thing. So I reached for my door handle to exit the car. And as I did, the saucer just barely perceptibly moved toward us. And as it did, the low clouds came from behind, covered it up. And as it did, the rain instantly was back in full force as it was before. Didn't start again. It was just there again. So this guy in front of me, he starts creeping toward the parking lot. And I'm like, okay, I don't care if I hit this guy. My insurance will cover it. We're going to verify this thing. So he pulls into the parking lot. I pull in, and I see his dome light come on next to me. He jumps out and he runs for the Sears building. The Sears building had this airlock. You go in, you wipe your feet on the mat down the basement to the left. Then another set of double doors. You go into the Sears store proper. So he's running for the airlock. I get out, and I know I'm going to be soaked to the bone. I don't care. And the rain is falling so hard it hurts. I mean, it literally hurts. And I'm shielding my eyes. I'm running. So I get there, and he's standing in the airlock on this mat, and he's just looking down. And he wore glasses. I didn't at the time. And he wore glasses. Glasses are all beaded with water. And we're both standing there like we just got out of the shower. We're just dripping water like crazy. And I walked around in front of him, and it took a second for him to realize I was even there. And he looked up at me, and I said, excuse me, but did you see what I just saw? And he looked me in the eyes, and he said, yeah, but I damn sure ain't going to tell nobody. And he sidestepped me and walked off through the store. And you got to remember, back then, this was like 70s, somewhere around in there. You didn't tell people you saw a UFO. You didn't believe in
Oh,
ghosts.
no.
Because you were chastised, you were excommunicated from the church, you could lose your job, all these types of things. So he was like, yeah, I saw it, but I ain't going to tell nobody. So there was the verification that I needed that this was real. So that was my first UFO encounter in broad daylight with witnesses, multiple witnesses that saw the damn thing before I did. And since then, I've had other experiences. One of the most dramatic, when my wife and I moved to Florida, we had in the house we were living at then, we had a courtyard. And I would sit out at night and look at the sky and look at the stars, which I've loved to do since I was a kid. I've always been an outdoorsman. And I was sitting there, and off to my right, there was this orange orb that was moving very slowly through the sky and very close to me down low. And we lived near an airport where there were small planes that flew around all the time. So I looked at this thing and I said, oh, this must be a plane. And I looked at it, and there was no engine noise, and there was no, no strobe lights. And and nothing going on. I was like, well, what the heck? So this thing got around in front of me and got closer. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, that's a UFO. And so it got right in front of me, this glowing, translucent orange orb, very big in the sky. And I stood up and psychically and verbally, I said, if you can hear me, stop and back up, reverse course. And Chris, this damn thing stops and reverses course in the sky.
No, wow.
I was like, my God. And then from down way low where it was, this thing in less than a second's time shoots up to where like the 747, 727s, all these planes are flying up at that height, shoots up there, hovers a little bit, and then shoots up into the stars. Kind of moves back and forth in the stars a little bit and then shoots off into the universe. No sonic boom, no sound, no smoke, no flames, no nothing. And man, talk about gobsmacked. Talk about just mind boggled. And I've had several other UFO experiences after that, several to this day, several before that. I'm no better looking. I'm no handsomer. I'm no richer. I'm no healthier. I don't know who they are, what their purpose is, what the agenda is, but I know they are real beyond any shadow of a doubt. I've had all these experiences, all these encounters, sometimes like initially in the presence of other witnesses. And, you know, the problem that we have in ufology is we have all these people that are with the dogma, the tradition, the ritual. And it's like, you know, I read a story this guy said, and so I wrote about his book in my book. We don't have anything to hang our hats on. We don't know what these beings are, who they are. We don't know what their agenda is. But let me tell you something. The government has to know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Eisenhower back in the, what was it, 48, 58? Signed that treaty allegedly in that hangar.
Yep.
So,
and let me tell you something I saw with my own eyes on TV. This is a decade or more ago, but I watch documentaries all the time on TV. And I saw this documentary and it looked interesting. I tuned into it. And there was one of the former heads of our CIA. And he was on this show. And he said, you know, our excuse is nowadays we don't have technology. We don't have cameras good enough to capture these UFO, blah, 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 blah. Okay. This guy, a decade or more ago, former head of the CIA, told this story on TV. I witnessed with my own eyes in this interview. And he said, during the Blackbird era, the SR-71 Blackbird, for you young kids, go Google it. It was our premier spy plane. It flew so high, it flew in subspace, and it flew so fast, nothing could shoot it down. No missiles, no rockets, no bullets.
That is correct.
Excuse me. So he said in the Blackbird era that if you took two golf balls and placed them a couple of feet apart on a putting green, and the Blackbird flew over at speed in subspace and shot a photograph, that when you developed that photograph, you could clearly read which golf ball was a Titleist and which one was a McGregor. And he said, that's decades old technology. Imagine what we can do now. And that's a decade or more or so ago that I saw that. Now, so for the government to say, well, we just don't have the technology, we don't have the optical, bullshit. Of course we do. It's been there for a long, long time. So the government has to know what's going on. The government has to know what these vehicles, entities, intelligences, whatever crafts, whatever they are, they have to know. Look, this is not something new. This didn't happen in the 1970s. Oh, there's UFOs all of a sudden. We've been seeing UFOs in the sky since there was recorded history.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
It's just ridiculous. And now there's one of my, there was a podcast that a guy used to go called the big phone home, and they did 2 or 3 of them. And the big phone home, obviously an homage to ET phone home. And what they would do is get all the UFO experts from all over the world together, and they would discuss everything that was going on, so on and so forth. Well, there was a congressman, Tim Burchett, and he came on this program, and he said, look, he said, what we have to do as the citizenry, we have to kick ass and take names and get this to open up. The government, the military, science, everything, we have to force their hand on this and get them to admit what's going on. And he said, if we don't do that soon, they'll clamp down to the point that even with Freedom of Information Act, it won't do you any good at all. So now in a new documentary that's coming out next month, there's a UFO documentary coming out next month. Tim Burchett and a lot of other people are in this. And they're saying like, yeah, we know. We have this knowledge. We have this information. We're sworn to secrecy, but we know. And it's going to take somebody, some whistleblower to come out, somebody to do something, somebody with a crisis of conscience to come out and give the truth to the people once and for all. And Tim Burchett said this, and he said it before. He said it in the big phone home, and he said, no, it ain't no BS. He said this in this new documentary coming out. He said the people that would come forth and would make these revelations, if they did that, they would commit suicide by several bullets to the back of their head. Yep. Understand that. So this is a situation we have. When I was I went to Roswell, New Mexico in 1998, and there was an event there called Alien Encounter 98. And I went to give psychic readings, and Stanton Friedman was there, gave a lecture. I got to see him in person, a lot of other things. So I was like, while I'm in Roswell, got to go to the UFO Museum. So I went one morning to the UFO Museum before Alien Encounter opened up, before I had to go do my readings and everything. So I got to do the touristy thing. So I got there and it wasn't open yet. So I'm peering through the windows and I'm waiting out on the sidewalk for it to open. There wasn't much foot traffic, and I'm meandering around, just waiting. And this lady is walking down the sidewalk towards me. And I look up and I see her, and we exchange smiles and nod. Hey, how you doing? And she stops. And she said, you waiting on the museum to open? I said, yeah. She said, your first time here? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. I said, I was born in New Mexico, but I've never been to Roswell, never been to the museum and everything. So, okay, so we're talking blah, 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 blah. She says, what do you do? I said, oh, God, here it comes. And I said, well, I'm a psychic, and I'm here doing readings at Alien Encounter 98. And she looked at me and she goes, so you'll believe what I'm about to tell you then. I'm like, okay. I said, well, what's that? She said, when I was young, my brother and I were out playing outside, and we saw the UFO come over and crash off in the distance.
Whoa.
And that's what I said. And she said, we knew it wasn't a helicopter. We knew it wasn't a balloon. We knew it wasn't a plane. We knew it wasn't a blimp. We knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it was a UFO. And she said, from the way that it flew and acted in the atmosphere, we knew it was in trouble. And we saw the crash off over in the distance. And I was like, holy frigging God. We talked a little bit more, and I said, have you ever come forth? Have you ever been interviewed on a TV show or come and talk to people or whatever and give them this firsthand knowledge? She goes, no. And I said, why not? And she said, because when that occurred, and this is something everybody can research, and it's knowledge that everybody knows. She said, when this occurred, we had people that came around the city that were in the military, that were in the government, and some people, we didn't know who the hell they were. But the message basically was, if you open your mouth and talk about this, your bones and your family's bones are going to be found out in the desert. And I was like,
Yep.
holy crap.
Yep.
And she looked one way up and down the street and looked up and down the other and looked like this a couple of times and said, I've said too much. I got to go. I'm sorry. Bye. And took off. So that many years later, the fear of that threat was still that strong. So that's why a lot of people don't come forward and don't speak, is because of what they experience, the threats they experience, and so on and so forth. But absolutely, it's real. Absolutely, the government has to know what's going on. And, you know, I'm just waiting for that one person that goes, you know, don't have a wife and kids, ain't afraid of nothing. I just don't care at this point. Folks, here's what's happening. I'm just waiting for that to occur. You know, that's
well, it's really funny you say that, because here's two reasons. Mrs. Scarborough, we see in the background. Bear with me, getting ready to bring you on. I had a guy, I'm not going to mention his name. Y'all can go to my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, follow us, and like us. He actually is a very big wig with the government. And he told us on the air, which I about fell out, that the fighter planes in America would see these flying objects, but they would not be able to pick them up on radar.
Yes.
And they could not figure out why, but actually they had to redo each fighter plane with this special technology. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the technology they have are about 30 to 50 years in advance of what we know, okay? So, yeah. And now they can see these things if they can't see them at all.
Yep.
So, and that's really interesting.
And the UFOs, when the pilots have gone to intercept the UFOs, in some instances, the UFOs have turned off the plane's weapon systems and navigation systems and other things. And we've had UFOs hover over our nuclear missile facilities, and this is well documented. And they've turned off the nuclear missiles. They've turned off the entire site where we would not be able to launch the missiles. Now, another interesting thing that happened that most people don't know, and this has happened twice that I know of that is documented, is that when the UFOs turned off the missiles and then later turned everything back on as they left, in two instances, missiles came on in launch mode. And the operators had to manually take the missiles out of launch mode and shut them down to keep them from going off. So here's two possibilities, okay? Looking at it logically. Either Ziggy turned to Morph and smacked him on the shoulder and said, "You idiot, what the hell did you do?"
Right.
Or, we got a problem here, folks. You know, we got a problem here. And the people that are like, oh, the Space Brothers, and they're coming to save us, and they're coming to help us, and this, that, and the other. Well, we have these instances with, you know, shutting off all the electronics in the fighter planes. We have near misses with not only fighter aircraft, but civilian aircraft. There's some reported instances of collisions with aircraft, one that supposedly resulted in a fatality. There's the documented case, where was it? What was the country? Brazil, wherever it was, where the UFOs came and terrorized people for several nights and shot at them and so on and so forth. We have cattle mutilations. We have forced abduction, so on and so forth. So I'm like, folks, if these are Space Brothers come to help us, it don't look too good right now, you know?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
You know, if you have a forced abduction against your will, and these things done to you against your will, and that's the preponderance of reportage that we have about these encounters, this is not a good thing. So at the very least, they seem indifferent. At the worst, they seem semi-hostile, or whatever the case is. So, you know, at this stage of the game, we should be saying, hey, government, look, we need to know what's going on. And if these allegations have any truth to them, that our government has made some type of treaty with these entities, We need to know that. And if that's the case, and that's why the government isn't revealing things, that would make sense because they know we'd be out with the pitchforks and the torches.
Yeah, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, why he brought that up, the movie Independence Day with Will Smith.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this. The government scrubbed that movie over 13 times before it was released to the cinemas. Now,
Really?
why in the world would why in the world would the government be so concerned about a movie?
Yeah.
But we have backstage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scarborough Nation. Welcome to the show. I hit a button here. Let's bring you back. All right. Here we are. Welcome, welcome. So, Norma, they actually took Area 51 and moved it. Area 51 is no longer actually Area 51. It's just a little teaser base. They actually moved it somewhere in
Area 52.
But yes, but all right. Welcome, Scarborough. So what's going on with you?
Oh, not much. I was interested in the portal talk at the start of the show.
Yeah.
Can we delve into that a little bit, or?
Oh, absolutely.
I've had a couple of portal encounters myself. First time was about 7 years old, when I was sort of drawn to the schoolyard that was across the street of the major street where we weren't allowed to cross, but something kept calling me to go over there, So I went across the street to the schoolyard, and I followed just my senses or intuition to the brick wall, stone wall, brick wall, and I followed it down. I could feel the energy coursing through this brick wall, like a ley line or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I got to the junction of where the old brick wall met the newer brick wall, right? And in the middle was about a black portal, about 3 feet in diameter, circumference in diameter, against the brick wall.
Yep.
Okay, right in the middle, right? And I was I could tell it wasn't active the first time I seen it. I went back another weekend, then a third weekend. This time it was active. It was like a black, like the first 2 times. It was sort of like a dull flat black sort of color to me.
Yep.
But like you could see the outline. Whereas the third time it was more glossier, right? The color
more energetic, more active, more 3D, and you could see into the dimension.
So I could see it, but I was afraid to stick my fingers or hands inside. So I got
you don't know where you're going.
Right. I was afraid something to pull me in. Right. So I used a stick, and I was able to go through the wall.
Oh, get it.
Right. Like just, a few inches there and pulled the stick back.
Right.
So I knew it was active.
Yeah.
So we're playing around there. There was a friend I would meet there, and we're kicking a little soccer ball. And I happened to kick the soccer ball against the wall, right? A couple times. Then I actually kicked it purposely at the portal, right? And it went into the portal, right through the brick wall, and then come back out. That's when I knew I was in trouble.
Yep.
Okay. So about 10 minutes after that, a little humanoid being, pixie or elf type of entity, about 15 inches tall, thin, with clothing, a little beard and clothing, and that came out with holding the soccer ball, right, looking around to see, and I said, hey, that's my ball, that's our ball, right? And I had a little interaction with him, and out came another one of his buddies. One guy looked like a dwarf, the first guy. The other guy was like a little pixie guy, with green
like gnomes.
Pardon me?
No,
like they were gnomes. They were like a pixie and a dwarf, but they were 15 inches tall and thin build. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And let's see. So how was it possible for that portal to be against that brick wall, right?
Well, they may have built the brick wall along a ley line or along an area where the portal was.
Right.
Okay. Or, the portal may have developed there after the wall was built.
Okay.
We don't have a really good understanding of these things other than they exist. Now, for the people that are listening to this or watching this and they say, oh, Scarborough's had too much LSD.
I was only
I knew
7.
that. I knew
I-
that was coming.
I want people to watch every single episode on the History Channel of Skinwalker Ranch. And on Skinwalker Ranch, they had a Jewish rabbi come out,
Okay.
and he had a ritual to open a portal.
Wow.
Now, on this episode, and they have this on film, it's documented, you can see it. The Jewish rabbi says there's very old spirits on this property.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is honor that, and we're going to make this he made a little rock circle and this and the other that he set in, and he did this invocation in Yiddish, Hebrew, whatever. And he said, this is to open a portal to this dimension, to this other dimension.
Okay.
Okay. Now, on camera, get this, on camera, he does this. He recites this incantation,
Right.
and the cameras are pointing toward this certain area, and you see on camera this portal develop and open on camera. Okay, so for the people that think Scarborough,
Was it a clear portal? Was it any color to it, or was it?
It was dark, like you described.
Okay.
And then there was like an opening where you could kind of see through it.
Okay.
And the temperature in that area dropped like 20, 30 degrees, whatever it was. And they could see this one area. All around it seemed normal. In this one area, everything was all screwed up. You can go back, look at this, see it on there. So these portals are real. On Skinwalker Ranch, they have seen beings like you described come out of these portals. Okay. And interact with people and do things and so on and so forth. So, yes, portals are real. These interdimensional things are real. These other beings are real. So this is not a fantasy you had, not a delusion you had. This is a real experience that you've had that we are now beginning to prove photographically and by science that these things exist and are real. We may not understand everything there is about them, but we know that they are real. We know they're there, and we know these things actually happen. So what you experienced was a typical interaction with some of these types of otherworldly spirits, nature spirits, whatever they are. And this is an absolutely verifiable and real experience.
Because recently I was checking some of my photos, and I think I might have discovered in one or two of my photos the actual like black circular portal. Yeah. So I'm still working on that. I'm gonna hopefully get it up soon. And
the problem with these things is they seem to play peekaboo with us. Okay. I always tell people you can't make an appointment with a UFO. You're not going to go out and say, okay, let's go out at 10 o'clock Tuesday and we'll photograph UFO. It didn't work that way. No. And even with the many paranormal manifestations I've had, there are times that I want something to happen, it doesn't. Times I'm not expecting something and it does. So these things are, the other side plays peekaboo with us. For that, we don't know why.
I've had a few paranormal and cryptid encounters, but it's like my intuition. It's like I start vibrating, like it's like an alarm bell's going off. We know that something's going to happen.
Something's happening,
Right.
Because when we interact with this other dimension, it's like we're 110 volts and we plug into 220 volts.
Right. I feel the air feels electrified around.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know there's something unusual going on. We know there's something different going on.
I remember. Go ahead, sir.
In my experience, most of these experiences have been positive for me, and in many cases, literally life-saving.
Right.
But I think that a lot of the negative experiences people may have is when they go, like when these so-called ghost hunters on these paranormal shows, when they go and they
Provoke or
curse the spirits, challenge the
they'll never
spirits,
do
this and
that.
the other. You wouldn't walk up to Mike Tyson's house and knock on his door and go, "Hey, SOB, come out here, mofo. I'm talking to you. Get your ass out here." You wouldn't do that. You
No,
get your
no,
teeth knocked down your throat.
that's right.
So there are powerful, powerful, powerful forces on the other side in this invisible realm that we need to respect.
For
And we
sure.
need to not go in there cursing and challenging this
Yeah,
other. And the other
totally-
funny thing that always gets me is when these so-called ghost hunters go in and they say, "Show yourself," and the ghost does something and they scream and run like little girls. It's like, dude, that's what you're there for. What are you doing?
That's
You know?
right.
So it's we just have so far to go in this, and so much of this, just like in religion, so much in the paranormal community is by misrepresentation, entertainment, misunderstanding, dogma, tradition, ritual, all these things. So there's a lot there that we have to get through. I have a real good friend of mine that was at Stanford when they developed Stanford Research Institute. Now, he was not a part of SRI, but he was there when they developed SRI.
Mhm.
And he got to know personally Geller and Targ and Puthoff and all these guys, and met some government people. And he told me one time, he said, there was a remote viewing experiment that the government, he said that the alphabet agencies threw money at SRI like it was water. Okay. And he said one of the experiments that the remote viewer did, they had a target and the remote viewer identified this target. And he said, well, this guy's sitting on like a bench or whatever. There's a train track in the background. There's this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And so the government person said, yeah, that's correct. That's where the target was. And that's the surrounding area. And so my friend said, where's the train? And the guy said, what? He said, where's the train? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, well, this guy's sitting by the train track where there, whether it's a, commuter train, whatever it is. Where's the train? If the guy's sitting out there for any length of time, you should be seeing the train go by. Why didn't he pick up the train? And the guy's like, well, it's a success. We got what we needed. And so my friend's telling me, and I'm a professional photographer, and he said, and when he told me this, he said, oh, you'll understand. Being a photographer, you'll understand this. He said, he told the guy, he said, look, let's assume that your remote viewer is an old film camera and you're using slow speed film and a slow shutter speed. Okay. And the train goes by and the remote viewer doesn't see the train. But if you take and train the remote viewer to use a fast shutter speed and fast film, when the train goes by, he's not just going to pick up the guy sitting there and the static things around the bench and the foliage and the fountain or this and the other one. He's going to see the train going by too.
Right.
Think of how you can enrich this and enhance this and how much more useful information you'll get. You know what the government response guy was?
No.
We've got what we need. It was a success. That's all we need. and so these are some of the things you deal with when you're trying to
right.
Say, hey, there's so much more,
Right. That was like the time we were in the boat and we're fishing. The one guy's in the front in the bow, and I'm in the middle, and his cousin is sitting in the back, controlling the boat with it. Mm-hmm. We're fishing, right? So, and I see the sky opened up. Right, it's like somebody opened up a little window, about 4 feet, but 4 foot square, and out comes raining about 50 tiny little pebbles, right, and it starts hitting the guy sitting in front of the boat in the back, and all these tiny little pebbles, right, and he said, "Hey guys, stop that, whatever." I said, "We're fishing. Look, my hand's on my fishing pole, right, right, we're fishing this way," and. And then, so then it happened 2 more times, and his little cousin there, he seen it too, where it just opened up, and 50, 100 little pebbles rained down on him again. We started laughing and that, but it just like about 8 feet off our bow in the air, just a little window opened up, clear window. Little pebbles.
The other side will do things to get our attention.
Right.
And to show that they're there. And, it's up to us to try and communicate with whatever the positive and the helpful and the good there is. And there's sometimes, I tell people all the time, and I tell my clients, I say, look, you might have a real good friend. Well, it's like, look, when Grizzly and I were trying to set up this show, and I have to go back here just a little bit because it was so friggin' weird. Grizzly and I have been working on setting up this show for a long time. His emails to me would disappear. My emails to him would disappear. His phone calls to me would vanish. We tried to set up an interview and it never happened. And when he called me to say, hey, John, where are you at? I did not get that voicemail for a week and a half after he called me.
I believe it.
Like weird things happening, strange things happening.
Right.
So, but anyways, we're meant to be here tonight. We're here tonight. We make
absolutely. Amen.
Yes,
that's right.
But there are strange things that happen, weird things that happen.
I've had this one time when I was about 19. I had sitting in my local neighborhood park. The tree beside tree stump that was hit by lightning, previously hit by lightning. Right. It came to life. I felt like I could hear somebody walking inside, like up a wooden spiral staircase, like they're wearing heavy boots. Boom, boom, boom.
Absolutely.
Going up, and they came out, and a little creature, humanoid creature, once more, but this time it was about the same thing, about 15 inches tall, but this time it was more stockier in build. Right, with a big bobblehead type head, right? Whereas the other ones were thin. Yeah, it was like a little, like the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, just a miniature character, right? Like you see, and come out, emerge out of there, right? Long story short, about a week after, when I got my friend, I boosted him up because it was about 8 feet up there, about 7 feet up the hole, the nesting hole, to have a look, because I was curious to see if it was hollow inside or not, right? And it wasn't. It was just a little space inside, and it was solid, the stump. So, but it sounded like amplified the sound. Sure. Going up the stairs, and then same thing when it went back down into the hole and back down, same thing, going down the staircase. The staircase, like the sound was amplified 20-fold, I couldn't believe it. It's like, and then the switch gets turned off, like the air seemed electrified once more, and then boom, everything's gone. Exactly. And I sat hundreds of times after that in these same woods and had very minor experiences of something, but it was just happened that one day.
And that's the thing that we have to understand. This is all around us, and we have to make effort to make more of a good contact with it, understanding with it. And what I tell my clients all the time, what I tell people on podcast all the time is like, look, there are intelligences out there that are not human intelligences.
Yes.
And we may not understand or know what they are, but they have purpose, they have will, they have volition, they have intelligence, they have emotion, they have feeling. And we have to learn how to interact with these things. And we have to understand, our problem is we view history through the lens of, okay, I was born in 1954, I'm 69 now. Everything that's happened on this planet's happened in these 69 years. No, history goes back thousands of years.
Yes, sir.
And all of these experiences occur, and we have such a narrow vision, such a narrow view. And we have such a narrow view of the paranormal and what happens and what goes on. And there's so much more. There's such a vast thing that we need to learn. We need to interact with it. We need to explore. And so we have to understand that. We have to understand that, look, we're just getting a little teeny tiny glimpse of this vast, huge thing, through the short time that we've been alive on this planet. Right. And there's so many things that happen on this planet that we're not even aware of. We don't even know. And when we discover them, we're like, oh my God, it opens up all these doorways to a greater understanding, a greater initiative, greater thing. And, that's where we have to be now. But again, going back to what Scarborough said, if this sounds far-fetched or for what I've sounded.
No, I'm totally open minded. I've had multiple
Or Grizzly sounds
UFO
far-fetched.
cryptid.
We're getting
encounters.
photographic evidence now of this
Yeah.
on mainstream TV shows now. It's happening. It's there.
Yes,
You know?
yes, yes. I believe that. Yes, for sure.
Well, Mr. Scarborough, I greatly appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
me on. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have
sir.
you on. Take
you,
care.
John Russell.
Always
Thank
come
you.
back. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody else like to come on and say hi and ask a question before we go here in a few? Please send me a note, Norma. For some reason, I got an itch that you want to come on and say something. And if I'm wrong, that's okay. But, don't be embarrassed, Norma. If you want to come on, come on.
Come on,
Come on
Norma.
down. That's right. So what? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you this joke. Scarborough, you're gonna die about this one. So when you remember the guy I told you I was drinking a beer with in the garage, he was an atheist. Now he wasn't an atheist. Well, when I sold the house, years later, I moved into another house. It was not too far from there, and I was a Chihuahua rescuer for the tri-state area. That means vets would call me, clinics would call me, dog pounds, or however you want to call them. They would call me, and I would go pick them up, whatever. I mean, I had 3/4 of an acre in the city, and that was a lot of land, where I was at.
Yeah.
I had 37 trees, which I hated in the fall. But anyways,
I relate.
so I had to put up a privacy fence along with a chain link fence. And I went to the neighbor. I'm like, look, I can run our privacy fence all the way down through here. And with your chain link fence where it's at, it's going to look really ignorant. Can I just hook up and go straight across and tap to the other side? And I was like, you don't have to worry about cutting the grass. I'll be real neighborly. I'll maintain it for you. I got a riding lawnmower. Don't worry about it. They're like, yeah. Now, it's not yours. I'm like, yeah, I know that. That's what I'm saying. I'll take care of it. I don't want to have to split it up. So I went out and bought all these floodlights, and I wanted them set to where my little Chihuahuas would go out around the house. It would light up, because these are 5, 7, 9-pound dogs, right?
Yep.
So guess who came over to help me install them was Tim. Well, we were having a few beers, and I had this barn out in the backyard, and it had electricity ran to it. And Tim was like, okay, we got the ones up on the house. He said, did you want one back there? I'm like, yeah, man, that'd be simple. I got 2 left over. I was like, we can just go really tap right into it. So he was like, well, he said, I'm going to go in there. He said, open up your basement door. It was an old farmhouse, what it was. I loved it. And opened the basement door, and I walked down to the basement, went to the breaker box, and I started flipping switches to see which one ran to the shed. And he's like, "Yay!" I was like, "Okay, that's the switch." So I went out there, finished the beer with him. He hooked it up. Man, it didn't take not even 5 or 8 minutes. It's just 2 wires, right? So he's like, "All right." He said, "Go back in, and when I holler, flip it on." And I'm like, "All right." And this is like 3:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday. He hollered. I flipped it on. I came out the back door, and I was like, "Whoa! What in the hell did I buy? I can't even see." And Tim's like, and this is like a good 60 yards from the house. And Tim was like, "What did you buy?" I'm like, "I have no idea, but I want to return everything and get this, because this is like blinding, like really blinding." And we were looking at it, and we were such amazed, and we noticed it starts smoking, and it was melting. Then it caught on fire, and I was like, "What?" So I ran down the basement and flipped the switch off, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" And Tim's like, "Dude, I have no idea." So I got looking at the wires running from the house, and I was like, "There's 2 lines." I was like, "Tim, how many lines do you hook up to the line?" He's like, "Well, both, the ground and the positive." I'm like, "Tim, that above is 110 and that below is 110, it equals 220.
There
So
you
we
go.
hooked up the floodlight to a 220 volt. And man, it lasted about like 45 seconds. It was the beautifulest white light you've ever seen.
There you go. Before it blew,
the smoke and melted, and So Scarborough says, "Thank you, Mr. Russell and Grizzly. It's always good talking to people who actually really know about portals
Thank you.
and other dimensional activity." Absolutely.
Now, Norma,
my motto
Norma
is,
says she's shy. We should get Norma on.
Norma, don't be shy. You don't have
Come
to. You
on,
have to show
Norma.
your face.
Come on,
Yeah.
Norma.
Come on.
You're among
Come
friends
on down.
here. You're among friends here.
Yeah. Come on, Norma. Norma. But
Norma.
that's right. I mean, we all have funny stories and we could always talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Russell, one thing I always say, I always want to do different is I want to be, real people, real stories, real encounters.
Absolutely.
And Norma's laughing, saying that's so sweet. And I do check on my guests before they come on the show, Norma. I don't like BSers or wannabes. Unfortunately, they're out there.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
I had a promoter that reached out to me today, and he was like, "We have been watching your shows." Now, that was plural, shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my guy to hook up with you, and I think y'all be a good match.
Mm.
And I was like, huh. Well, why would he think that?
Yeah, where's this coming from?
Yeah, so I went and I clicked on his YouTube page, right? And he's got a ton of videos.
Yeah.
And the first thing I see is a ton of marijuana leaves and none smoking joints.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, you do not know who I was.
Yeah,
before.
there you go.
You did not know anything about my background.
There you go.
So I was like, click, delete. Norman says creepy. Yeah, it was creepy seeing none smoking joints.
Well, there's so many people out there now in this that are out to make a buck, and
you're right.
It's really sad. Everybody has to be really careful. Everybody has to be really cautious. And like all these paranormal shows on TV, not all of them, but a lot of them are faked, set up, manipulated. I've talked to some of the on-air talent on some of the big shows, and they've said that they were asked if they could work up a cry or if they could scream or run from the place, run from the room and such an frame or whatever. And I've talked to some of the production talent, the behind the scenes, that told me of some of the stuff where they had allowed some of these big name people to access some of their clients and things that manipulated stuff, did stuff wrong, and acted poorly, and so on and so forth. So people need to understand, when you're watching these shows, this is not a real representation.
No, it's entertainment.
Like to do a paranormal investigation or to interact with the other side. If you want to know what it's really like to live that way and interact with that way, read my books. Go and get my books and read my books, because these are my personal experiences since I was a kid, and they will tell you exactly what it's like to live that way, to interact with the other side, what you can learn, and so on and so forth. So, that's the thing we battle against now.
Well, and it's right. And I always compare this stuff to like fishing shows, right? Yeah. And everybody wants that fishing pole. Everybody wants that lure. And it's like, ladies and gentlemen, do you not realize they film for probably about 3 to 4 days to catch 15 fish in a 47-minute show?
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody has that luck, ladies and gentlemen.
No, absolutely not.
So
it just doesn't happen that way. It's like when like I said, you can't make an appointment with the UFO, and you have to understand that when you're dealing with the other side and you're dealing with these intelligences, they're going to act, react, interact based upon what they want to do, what their will is, what their intelligence is, what they, what their desire or motive or whatever is. And it's just like, well, look, why can't we get this every time we go out? Well, look, I may have a good friend and we love each other, but we don't talk to each other every day. We don't talk to each other every week. It might be a month or more before we talk, and we catch up and we do, and then it might be another 2 or 3 months before we talk. And it's that way with the other side. We think the other side is just sitting waiting on us to go, oh, I'm going to bless you with this, do that. Here's the lottery numbers. Here's your love or whatever, this, that, and the other. It's not that way.
No, it's not, ladies and gentlemen. So how do people get a hold of your books, and what are they called?
The first book I wrote is Writing with Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead. That's available online at all
Awesome.
sellers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books Million, Target, Walmart online has it, 8 books, Apple Books. The second book I wrote is A Knock in the Attic, and that's available likewise the same way. Each book also has its own website. So for writingwithghosts.net, A knockintheattic.net, and for people to find out more about me personally, or if they want a reading, that's johnrussell.net.
And what happens if they want one of your books at autograph? How do they get those?
On the each individual book's website, so writingwithghosts.net or a knockintheattic.net, there's a link on there to click, and you can get a personalized autographed copy of the book.
Wow, man, that's amazing. Mr. Russell, I'm going to send the invitation, number one, for that psychic group that I built, okay?
Yeah,
I want you to be a part of that. We have another show. It's called Paranormal and True Crime Podcast.
Okay.
And we do cases on unsolved mysteries, missing persons, and everything.
All right, yeah.
We don't give anybody false pretenses, or we're not out there to say we're going to solve your case, right?
Yeah.
But we try to find some answers and some closure to some family members. So, Scarborough says thank you so much. Or Normal says thank you so much, John. We'll check out your books.
Norma. Appreciate it.
Scarborough says thank you.
Thank you,
but also, I say, what is today? Today's Thursday?
Thursday, the 16th, yes.
Yeah. So tomorrow, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to bring him back. Don't you think, Norma, Scarborough, and everybody else? Normally, we all are seeking the truth. And one thing I love about Mr. Russell, it is what it is. He tells it like he sees it. And hey, if he's wrong, then Scarborough says yes, all caps, bring him back. So okay, we'll do that. Absolutely.
I'd be happy to.
And I'll tell you what I'll do next time too. I'll advertise next time that we'll dedicate some Norma's giving some thumbs up. So that's awesome. We'll advertise too that we'll have an open mic night too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that way we'll have people that want to come on. And ladies and gentlemen, my experience, Mr. Russell can chime in on it. Don't ever get your hopes up when talking to a psychic. If you try and get a hold of Mamaw and your uncle, great uncle John comes through, because they're more, hey, look at me, I want to talk. James, Mr. Russell, get a hold of me. It happens, okay? And sometimes
the people on the other side have their own thing to do, and they're not always at your beck and call to come and talk to you.
No, you're right. And also, too, sometimes been trying to finally write my own experience in the book. Well, Mr. Scarborough, Mr. Russell can probably help you out with some connections. I know I can. I've got a publisher as well. But anytime y'all got questions, what was your johnrussell.net?
Johnrussell.net,
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, check them out. Make sure like us, follow us, and subscribe to our channel here at Grizzly on the Hunt. We're definitely going to have Mr. Russell back. I definitely have him on some other cases with the other members that actually work in those programs you were talking about earlier with the government. So hand in hand, Scarborough's like, cool beans. He loves it. Real people, real experiences, real encounters, man. And that's the only way to go. So absolutely. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of night. We must say goodbye. Mr. Russell, you will get that invitation to that group here shortly. Yes. I'll arrange that for you. But thank you again for showing up. I really appreciate it. And tomorrow,
I appreciate being here. I've enjoyed it so much.
Oh, man.
It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. And tomorrow, let's get a hold of each other and let's schedule another show.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Norma says, bye, everybody. All right. Bye, Norma.
Bye,
Mr. Russell,
everybody.
thank
Thank
you
you for
again.
being here. Grizzly, thank you, man. This has been so much fun. Look forward
Oh,
to doing it
yeah.
again.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world, Grizzly, unfortunately, is that time of the night. Norma, Scarborough, Brenda, everybody else out there in La La Land. I want to make sure and give a shout out to all the admins and moderators that are letting me broadcast live in their groups. Purchase your tones today. But if you want to come on the show and be a guest at any time, make sure and email me at grizzlytheparanormal@gmail.com. Once again, that's grizzlytheparanormal@gmail.com. On some of my shows, I'll let you come on live. You can ask questions face to face. You can hide your face. It don't matter. You don't have to use your real name. You can make up a name. Just make sure the name is family appropriate. That's the only thing I ask, right? Or you can communicate through our chat. I will have the phone line set up here shortly since I got my studio up and running. But yeah, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an excellent show. Email me some feedback. I love to give it to Mr. Russell. I think we're going to see a lot of him. And that is not a prediction. That is a call out to Mr. Russell.
Purchase your tracks today.
Purchase your tracks today. Yes, I love to sing. I used to actually win competitions in karaoke, but not now. I'm too old. But night, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. Peace. See you soon.